Candymonium at Hersheypark is a 210-foot tall B&M Hyper Coaster. Candymonium was added to the park in 2020, features 4,636 feet of track, reaches a top speed of 76 miles per hour, and is of course themed to chocolate. This past summer I had the opportunity to ride Candymonium 2 separate times, and I have quite a lot to say about this coaster. So, without further ado, let's dive into this review of Candymonium. Now, at first glance, Candymonium's stats are not too impressive. A majority of B&M Hypers are over 5,000 feet in length, and this one only stands 210 feet tall. But you really don't feel the less height or the less track length really that much, so you really can't complain too much about the stats. And it also does feature a 77-degree drop, which is pretty steep. The trains are of course the classic B&M Hyper Coaster trains with those wonderful clamshell restraints. They're really good trains, and honestly maybe even the best trains out there, but that is all subjective. But something interesting is similar to Mako, Candymonium also only features 7 rows, where most B&M Hypers with those trains feature 8 rows. Again, it's not really going to affect your ride experience. Now sure, you might not get yanked over the drop as much in the back row, but again, it's not really affecting the ride experience whatsoever. And another thing I have to commemorate Hersheypark on is actually how unique this layout is for a B&M Hyper. Most hypercoasters are, you go up a lift hill, you drop, you go out, you go over a couple airtimes, you turn around, you go back and do a couple more airtime hills, you do a helix, and you're done. But Candymonium does a little more than that. You still get the drop and airtime hills and everything, but you get this cool little helix in the middle of the ride, followed by this twisted airtime hill. And then of course you have the iconic Candymonium helix around the fountain. I highly recommend getting a picture with this because it's really a cool photo opportunity and a cool experience seeing the train wrap around you when you're looking at it from the fountain. So it was definitely nice to see a little more variety in this layout compared to some other older B&M Hypers. Oh, and I forgot to mention maybe the best part about this ride. Its theme. Because who would have thought that a theme park out there would theme a roller coaster to chocolate? That's such a great idea. And I do know back in 2020 when this was announced and everything, some people were worried that the track would look really bad being brown, but it really does look like chocolate. So I'm actually pretty impressed with Hersheypark. And you've got your standard Hersheypark hue. You got some wrappers on the ceiling and stuff. It's not anything too special, but it does make it a little bit more fun. And then of course, the trains are also themed to candy too. They're themed to Hershey Kisses, Reese Cups, and Twizzlers. Overall, they did a great job with this theming. They incorporated candy, they made the track look like chocolate, it was a really cool and unique theme. But now let's get into the ride experience of Candymonium. You enter the queue and likely wait a decent amount of time because this line can be pretty long. You then dispatch from the station in one of your 3 candy-themed trains and ascend up your 210-foot tall lift hill. And as you ascend the lift hill, make sure to look to your right because you can see the Hersheypark factory. Or, I think it's a Hersheypark factory, but it says Hershey on it, so it's close enough. You then begin to crest over the drop and plummet down your 210-foot drop at 77-degree angle, then reaching your top speed of 76 miles per hour. It's a pretty good drop. You do get some good airtime throughout the train, but I'd say some other B&M Hypers do a better job on the drop, such as Mako or even Diamondback, because it's a lot more of an intense drop and it throws you over more, and you get whipped over the back a lot more than Candymonium. But by no means is Candymonium's drop bad, and I would definitely say it's one of the highlight elements of the ride. But some other B&M Hypers do a little bit of a better job than Candymonium. You then ascend into one of those classic B&M Hyper airtime hills, providing multiple seconds of good flitter airtime to the entire train, before rising up and entering your turnaround. You're hit with some positive G's, then descend back to ground level before entering up into a trimmed airtime hill. Unfortunately, trimmed airtime hills are going to be a bit of a theme for this ride. And this trim hits pretty hard, so unfortunately, a decent amount of that airtime is killed. So you do still get some decent flitter airtime, but it could have been a lot better without the trim. After falling back to earth, you then rise up into yet another airtime hill. This one's a little closer to the ground, and I'm going to say it feels more like a speed hill than a traditional airtime hill. Which, if I had to take a guess, I would definitely say they were going for a speed hill. This speed hill definitely provides some stronger flow to airtime, but it's a little less sustained than a normal camelback hill. After descending, you then rise up into a helix, before entering one of the highlight elements of the ride, the Twisted Airtime Hill. This thing throws you out of your seat and twists you to the side at the exact same time. It is definitely the best element ride. Yes, the drop and airtime hills are good, but that strong airtime and the laterals combined makes for a killer element. And I really wish that B&M would incorporate this on more of their hyper coasters. Because it was such a good, fun change of pace that was the best element of the ride. So if anyone from B&M is watching this is a good element. So if you want to add more to your coasters, go ahead. After the best element of the ride, you head into another trimmed airtime hill. This trim hits really hard, killing all the airtime, and I really wish they hadn't included this trim, or at least toned it down a little bit, because it makes the falling helix a whole lot less intense. Like, you're having fun, the ride's going good, and then you just hit this trim that kills an airtime hill, and then you go into a pretty weak, no, don't get me wrong, scenic helix, but it just feels like the ride could have been so much better if the trim wasn't included. Because it unfortunately ruins the ending a little bit, but theme parks always have a reason for everything, so maybe they were worried that a helix would be too intense, but I just wish they hadn't added it. But there probably was a good reason for it, though. Following the trimmed airtime hill, you then head into your scenic helix. Again, a great photo op. I highly recommend taking a picture or video or whatever when a train passes by. You then rise up and hit your first set of brakes. Now you may think the ride's over, but it's not. You do a swooping turn, and then turn some more, and a little more, and turn a little more, then flatten out, and now the ride's over. Overall, Candymonium is definitely a good coaster, and a great addition to Hersheypark, with a lot of good moments, but unfortunately the trimmed airtime hills and a pretty weak ending. But by no means a bad coaster. In fact, I feel like it's a pretty good coaster. Sure, there are a lot of hybrids I would rank above this, and many coasters at Hersheypark that I would also rank above this, but definitely a must-ride at Hersheypark, and a great addition to Hersheypark's lineup. So for Candymonium's final grade, I'm going to give it a B+. Definitely a solid coaster with some good moments, but definitely not a standout attraction. So go check out Candymonium at Hersheypark, and if you enjoyed the video or found it informative in any way, then drop a like down below if you want to see more coaster content and reviews just like this. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.